Hello, panel number 2. Hi. So thank you so much for being here. I know you all are exhausted. Thank you for doing a really great job in building community. This particular panel of admissions decision makers, directors, will talk to making meaning and moves out of the decisions that they have put forth. So I'm going to ask each of you, starting with Courtney, because I see her to my right, maybe your left, whatever, to introduce herself, give your title and what show are you binging. So we're going to run through that real quick with everyone, and then we'll get to questions. Thank you. Okay, I'm gonna ask you to unmute.
Okay, sorry, it was saying I wasn't allowed to unmute myself. Here I am. Hi, everyone. I'm Courtneyducette. I'm the Director of Admissions and Enrollment Management at Rye Country Day School. The show that I am binging, it's probably really embarrassing because I love a good reality television so I can just turn my brain off. So my real answer is any of the Real Housewives, but my official answer is the Olympics because I am obsessed with the Olympics. In my alternative life, I played ice hockey through college and coached for 12 years. So I have actually a lot of my former players are on the US and Canadian Olympic team, and they're playing tonight at 11:10. So tune in if you're awake. I will not be, but I'm really proud of those girls. And that's just, the history of independent school world. We're 2 degrees of separation, we always say. So that's my official answer, and welcome everyone.
Thank you, Courtney. Thank you. Nina.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Nina Hanlon. I'm the Director of Enrollment and Financial Aid at Greenwich Academy. I've been there for 11 years, which is shocking. And like many on the panel, I wear multiple hats. I'm a parent. I was teacher, coach at GA as well. I have been watching Boba Fett. I'm a bit of a Star Wars geek. So my husband and I have been watching that. We just wrapped that and just loved the way it was kind of interwoven with The Mandalorian. Won't give anything else away, but very good show. So I've been staying busy with that.
All right. Thank you, Nina. Thank you so much. Rachel, you're up next.
Hi, everybody. Rachel Oaken. I'm the Director of Upper School Admission here at Brunswick. And my husband and I just finished binging Reacher, about a very tall, strapping man who always does the right thing, supposedly. But when I'm alone, left to my own devices to watch whatever I want, I'm watching Afterlife with Ricky Gervais, which is heartbreakingly beautiful. Very good, very good. But I'm excited to be here, and hopefully we'll add some extra good value to all of you as you sort of go forward on this process the next couple of weeks. It's super exciting.
Yeah, it is exciting. Thank you so much. Thanks for sharing and being here. Okay, Jenny. Hello.
Sorry, I had the unmuting issue as well, but hi everybody, Jenny Bachmann. I'm the Director of Admission and Financial Aid here at St. Luke's. This is actually my 14th year, which I also can hardly believe, but something new and different every year in admissions and enrollment. I think that's one of the reasons why so many of us stay involved in this role for so long. So we've had actually a lot of college basketball on. We're Bengals fans, so a little cheer for the past weekend, but I did set my timer for knowing that Bridgerton now is 40 days away. So, so I'm good now. So thank you for all the recommendations this evening.
Yeah, we have a lot of great ones. Thank you so much, Jenny. So we're going to just jump right into a few of the broad stroke questions, and I'm going to really probably take some of my questions away to get right into the heart of what attendees want to know. And so none of this is probably going to be new to any of you all. You might find some really exciting questions, and I hope you just roll with us because it is about building trust and transparency as well about, what meaning all of this has and what the next moves are. So Jenny, I'm going to start with you. Who and what makes up the process of decision making? Oh, let me get you. Unmute again.
There we go. Sorry. So I keep thinking that I have the power to mute myself, but clearly I don't. So I will not do it anymore.
Okay.
No, it's a great question that we have. So we're a middle school and a high school. And so we see that there are very intentional groups of people to get involved throughout this process. So we actually have a group of teachers involved in the 5th grade committee. We have a separate 6th grade committee. We have a group of teachers that work on our 7th and 8th grade committee. And then we have 2 separate committees for high school too, because we realize that really the process and kind of the needs of students and what students are involved in really changes over time. We think it's hugely important to bring a lot of different voices around the table. So we do have really at each level, different people. We have deans of students involved. We have teachers involved. We have people that may represent our music program, our theater program, our athletic program. So we try to bring as many voices around the table because that's what we're trying to do for our community as well, is that we're trying to really build a community where students can come in, be successful, but really have that opportunity to take advantage of the so many different programs that independent schools have and offer. So that's where we really target each of those different, and I want to say something that's very important. I think all of my colleagues on the call this evening would say, this is not the college process, right? We are not expecting students to present a perfect resume, right? We know that students at all different ages are in different development. Some are really good at certain things, others are still developing, and that's okay. We want that in our schools, and we want really to bring all different experiences to our communities as well. So I think that's really important, that some people fear that their kids, have to have all these things. They don't. They're kids.
Great, thank you. So there are committees, right? It's not just one person. It's made up of different stakeholders in the school that sit together and figure out, how do we build community? How do we build the classrooms that work? So I think thank you for that, Jenny. That's a great segue to Courtney's question that I have for you. Earlier, Dr. Alecia talked about, getting away from this idea of what is a good fit, right? Like that just feels weird to say, oh, someone has to fit this mold, which is not really allowing for any authenticity. We're telling people that they may need to assimilate when actually they should just be acculturating and bringing their whole selves to this admissions process. But what are the characteristics of today's ideal candidate for building a successful community? What type of a learner are many schools looking for? I understand that there's different, each school has their thing, but overall, what are some of the characteristics that you're looking for in students?
Thank you, Gina. What a great question. What a difficult question. So Ride Country Day is pre-kindergarten through 12th grade. So clearly it's a little bit different and developmentally appropriate depending on what age we're talking about. So just to break it down, when we look at our youngest applicants, and they are as young as 3 years old applying for a pre-K, we talk about academic readiness and social interaction, because those two pieces are so key. But of course, there is no magic formula. There's no guarantee. There's no, oh, that's the perfect child. Because as Jenny said, they are here. Children are meant to make mistakes, and they're not meant to be perfect, right? I have 2 of my own that are definitely not perfect. But in the lower school, right, that's what we say in general we're looking for. And I think across the board, our admissions committee, which like St. Luke's are made up of faculty and administrators that are working with our students day to day, are just looking for kids who are eager to get involved. I love an applicant who tries new things and then figures out what they do like and what they don't like, right? And it's not, oh, I don't like broccoli, but it's like, but have you ever tried broccoli before you say you don't like broccoli, right? Building off of that middle school, they're gaining independence. And for us, that's grades 5 through 8, thinking more about academic readiness and really building off of that idea of trying all kinds of new things. So built into our curriculums, we have core classes and different electives that we require kids to do so that they can try new things. So you have to take, for example, chorus and band in the 5th grade. And then in 6th grade, you get a choice, right? Similarly for foreign language, you get to choose what you're doing, and then you can make different choices. So we just want kids who have open minds to try new things. And then likewise, when we get to the high school, grades 9 through 12, we're thinking about really then we're vamping up independence, but prioritizing academics. But I think I speak for everyone on this panel. We want students who are well-rounded, right? We don't want kids who are just studying all the time. And sleep is very important too, like balance. So do your homework, prioritize that, but then close the books and do something else, right? And we don't have a preference to say you have to be a star athlete or you have to be good in X, Y, and Z, because we are still learning and developing, even myself, right, as an adult, but we want kids to be open to trying new things.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you for that. Miss Nina. So Sam, you remember when we had Nina on first season of the podcast, Articulating an Independent School Podcast? You were a great guest, Nina. And one of the things that I really appreciated about your response to the wait list, I'm just going to let you repeat it. So my question for you is, what do you think appropriate responses of families should be to the decisions that come their way, whether it's a yes, a wait list, or a no? And you have very specific things that you even say about a no, whereas I would say, oh, and you're like, well, wait a minute. So I'm going to let you run through the yes, the wait list, and the no.
I would love to. And I think one thing you have to understand, and I know this as a parent myself, that this is an extremely personal process, but you have to take a step away because our schools, for a variety of reasons, have to make really difficult decisions. A lot of us have space constraints. We're working with a vast number of applications for only a few spots. So there are a lot of pressures that are happening. So it is not a personal attack. Your child is extraordinary. We recognize that and we celebrate that. We just can't take everyone. So that being said, an accept is pretty straightforward. You'll get that information. Usually if you've applied for aid at that point, you'll also get that information with that acceptance so that you're getting all the information you need so that you can truly celebrate in that moment and start to make this hard decisions at that point. I'm going to go right to the regret letter, because the regret letter is another kind of clear message in that there aren't enough spots, and that really, just for some reason this year, it's not going to work out for your child. They can always reapply. The door is not forever closed. But for some reason, this particular year just wasn't right. And sometimes the schools will message a reason. If you give us a call and you want to know, and we have the time and we can do it, we might give you a little bit more information to say, listen, come back for 9th grade, right? We think you just need a little more time where you are, keep working on your writing, keep doing this, and come back. We'd love to see you. So again, not slamming the door in your face. Now, the wait list is the hard part. It's the hardest part because you got to wait and you got to wait and wait. And I think the challenge is that families are eager to know what that means. They want to know what's my ranking? Where am I on this list? For many of us, we don't rank. For many of us, it is about the fit. If the spot opens, we're going to be looking for a very particular personality, talent, skill, something, you name it, to fill that vacancy. So it's hard. We can't really tell you where your child is on the list. Our wait lists often go through the summertime. And that can be a long, painful wait as well. But the good news is that wait lists are real. And if you are on the wait list and we have the movement, we are going to call somebody. I have so many success stories of people coming off the wait list and including financial aid students, right? The money will be there. If we can make it work, we're going to. We're putting you on the wait list because we see what your child brings. But again, for some reason, those numbers we just couldn't make it in that first round. So hang in there. I think what you're alluding to, Gina, when I spoke on the podcast, and it was a while ago, so forgive me, is that call us. And I know all my colleagues are like, please don't, Nina, don't tell them that. But you can check in with us. I don't think we do that enough. And taking the power, and back to Alecia's comment before about like owning this process. Pick up the phone. So many families do it. And I'll say Black and brown families don't do it enough. email. If you're not ready to pick up the phone, email, just check in and do it regularly. I don't mean every day. I don't mean every week. But if we give you a sense of like another good time to check in, do it. Keep us on the radar, because it's true, when it comes down to that moment when that spot opens, we really are going to go, you know what? So-and-so has been in touch. And I do remember they sent me that update. They sent me that transcript, and she really has made a huge jump in this last little bit. Let's take a look at her again. It really matters. That was a very long-winded explanation, but that's it.
No, that was perfect. That was perfect. And we're going to come back around because I still have a lot of attendee questions around yes, wait lists, no, financial aid. So we'll come back. So thank you for that. Rachel, I want to come to you. You have probably an even tougher question, because this relates to a question about if we can truly begin to envision diverse communities. And I'm not just talking race, I'm talking socioeconomics, I'm talking, gender, sexuality, I'm talking a whole host of things. But can we truly envision a diverse community in private, independent schools when we consider the cost of tuition? Is it even a reality, right? Will we, unless we begin to change these business models at school, have you all as, decision makers, and I think you have, because I've been told you have been grappling with this question and maybe reimagining and revisioning what it could look like to really accommodate a more diverse community?
I dream about piles of money and transportation, frankly. I mean, truly, because for me, every single boy, and we are an all boys school, so every single boy that walks through our door is coming at us, to us, from a different place, whether it's socioeconomic background, what kind of school they're come from, how far away they're coming from. And I think there are some things that if you can throw lots of money at it, it helps, right? It helps to make us feel nearer and closer. Brunswick, GA, St. Luke's, right? How can we get you here to show you what we are? How can we ably get to know your children? What, as Alecia said, what they will bring and what they will add to the fabric of our schools. That's a wonderful time in my office when I'm meeting young boys. But then the reality sets in. How do I get them here? How do I make sure that when they do get here, they're going to hit on all the cylinders that I know they have within them, because they're children and they're incredible sponges and rockets of energy that just need certain things lined up for them to go off to the places that they go. So piles of money and transportation are always on the top of my list. I really trust and believe in the power of community. So I can think of in my head a lineage of boys who, one maybe we accepted and now he's a senior, and he sparked an interest in his neighbor, right? From maybe Portchester, and his cousin now has applied. And so there's this beautiful thing that happens when it happens that way, whether it's a specific community from a community center or a lineage perhaps of boys who we've accepted from other towns or other schools, or maybe they had another connection. Maybe they were all in choir together. Maybe they all played a sport together. So I really believe in that sort of outreach, because I feel as though that those boys come through the door really excited to see what this is about. Teenagers, I'm upper school only, right? So by nature, the boys who I'm meeting, I want them to want to be here. They're old enough to have a vision of what they want their high school journey to look like. When they're little, it's much different. It's much more parent driven, and I get that. And that's I do think that the parent community is much more even impactful, important at that stage. But when you're a 14, 15-year-old boy and you're imagining how you want to turn into a young man, I want you to be able to see yourself when you come here. Is it difficult to find the sheer numbers of of different types of backgrounds, boys, to make every class as diverse as I want it to be. It can be, you know, we're in downtown Greenwich, right? But there are success stories, and I look around and I think about the boys that are here now, and I know it's just like that commercial, and they'll tell two friends, and they'll tell two friends, and so on and so on and so on. And I love those connections. In terms of when they're here, we've got a lot of things that we can do better. One thing that we're going to do this summer that we've committed to is something called, we're calling it Brunswick U, so that everybody who's new that is coming in is going to learn all the different specific kinds of vocabulary and language and all of those little things that if a boy or a child doesn't get off the top of the bat, right off the bat, how does that make them feel? I want to do away with as many of those as possible, so that when they show up here, they're happy, they're comfortable, and away they go.
Well, I know that's a tough question, and you're right. Listen, if we can, what you need is a whole lot more money, right? You need a whole lot more money, and I don't know if the business model of our schools are going to be changing anytime soon. But I just had to ask that. Okay, so thank you. So on to our attendee questions. We got into this a little bit, Courtney, when you were talking about the process of. Actually, I don't know if we really dug into what the process looks like. So this mom is from London and wants to understand more about the process. Her daughter is already in an international school in London. It sounds like she's thinking about relocating. How about Jenny? Why don't you kind of like just take a stab at, what this process looks like? I know we just went through it and you're like, well, people really know that already, but like more particularly, what are the most important parts of the process? How about that?
Absolutely.
What you really look at?
I'll go back first to what Dr. Thomas had been saying too, that visiting, and I know this is a family in London, so at some point, hopefully you can take that idea of visiting, because that I think is always, we kind of loosely call it kind of kicking the tires a little bit, but kind of going around and seeing and feeling communities is very important. All of us host different types of events and really do weekend events, day events, evening events to give families a lot of opportunities to come and explore the schools. There's a portion of the process that we want to get to know families. We're still, even though our 4 schools that are represented here are very different sizes, we're still small communities. We want to get to know families. I always say that's the funnest part of my job, is when I can sit down with the family, talk to parents, talk to the kids. I get the most information from 4th graders, as you can probably imagine, but that's a big piece of kind of getting to know a family, and we want you to get to know us. So when we schedule interviews, really the important part of that is for you to ask us questions, right? What can we tell you about the school? How can we help you know more? That's super important. There are, of course, standard pieces like transcripts from schools and recommendations and, kind of short essays for the kids and a couple questions for the parents. But I'd say really the visits, the interviews, and really having that opportunity to ask schools about the schools and really dig in so you can know it's the right thing for your family. One thing I do want to say, Gina, too, is that all of us participate in a consortium. In varying degrees, we do accept the same application. So we as a consortium have really worked hard to make this as easy as possible for families. So call it a little bit like the Common App, but it's nothing like the Common App for college. But, we really try to break this down and make it a little bit easier. And another piece too, is that's the admissions process. And I think I'm speaking for all my colleagues too. That is a completely separate process from the financial aid process. There is a piece, we use a tool that has families go through a questionnaire so we can understand how much a family can contribute to the education. And as we get a report from, it's called School and Student Services, so we can understand what a family could contribute. But those are 2 very separate processes. I'm sure all of us do it in very separate ways, but that financial aid process does not impact how we view a child for admissions. And I think that's really important for families to understand. They're kept separate very intentionally.
Okay, well, to that point, Jenny, I think that there's a dose of reality here too. I think, that first funnel, well, who do we love, regardless of their ability to pay, right? Who do we love? And then once we get into that group, I mean, at some point in time, I think it has to be somewhat, well, who doesn't need, who does need, and out of who does need, does that meet our budget? Like, how can our budget attach to it? So at some point in time, I'm thinking that impact happens. And so I'm going to go on to this next question because it really touches on that. So this parent says, and Courtney, I'm going to throw this to you. What if your child is admitted, right? We love them, but the financial aid package doesn't align with what your family is able to contribute? How do you handle that?
Okay, thank you, Gina. And financial aid is near and dear, I think, to all of our hearts because we're so intimately involved in that. All of us have these robust budgets of millions and millions of dollars that should be enough, but they're never enough. I always say that I would love, love, love if my school were need blind, meaning that we do keep them independent and there is no bearing on one another. But at the end of the day, right, it's not unlimited budgets for us. So that is the reality of what we're dealing with. So yes, if you are accepted to a school and you receive a financial aid grant that you realistically feel is something that you cannot afford to pay, the first step is to contact the school and be really open and honest about it and say, I want to, all of us, I'm going to speak freely, have what we call an appeal process. And there are different parameters for that. But typically we ask families to provide us with new information, right? So that we can go back to our committee and say, okay, here's new information that we hadn't considered. And I always tell families, there's got to be something new. Like if you comb through the parent's financial statement, which is a very comprehensive questionnaire, there's something you missed, right? You forgot that you spent thousands of dollars on that new boiler, whatever it is, right? Just comb through that. And that can be your new piece of information. Or the financial aid director really can talk you through it. And ask a school, is there anything else that I can do here? Right. The worst that can happen is they say, no, the grant is what it is. Right. But we all want to be competitive, but we want to be realistic. Right. So our financial aid grants are based on need. We don't offer any merit scholarships of any kind. So we can't go over what the calculations are within our school's professional budgets or professional judgments of what a family can afford. But with that said, there's always things that we may overlook. So I would recommend you yourself actually have access to a parent report on SSS. It's just a starting point. It's actually based on an anywhere town in Iowa. I know that in Fairfield County, Westchester County, New York City, we are not in Iowa. So most of us use what we call a COLA, cost of living adjustment. That's probably your worst case scenario when you look at that parent report. But really, right, SSS is a computer. It's whatever information you input, and then they spit you out a number. So if you write that you make $1 million a year, it is verified by your W-2s, but they will use that number, right? So there can be errors and there's always things that could be missed, and we're always here to help. And I would just add, lastly, that my colleagues on this call, we like to all be somewhat competitive. So if there's something, you get a 100% grant at Right Country Day and you get no aid at St. Luke's, right? That is not good for either of us. There's a huge mismatch there. And I would not hesitate to get on the phone with Jenny and say, hey, am I missing something here? And I would hope she would do the same. And so if you're comfortable just sort of sharing, I get grants sent to me all the time from other schools, or at least having an open dialogue of what realistically grants look like. And if they are really out of line, it's something that we want to know and we want to work with.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Yeah, I think it's all about the approach too, right? And I think families do need to be thoughtful in how they approach this process. I think they need to have voice and visibility and ownership of it, but how you get more honey, more bees with honey than you do, vinegar. So that's all I have to say. It's really about how you approach this. So I have some questions about the wait list. I want to get back to that. There's one question that struck me as not a good move. I believe in ownership of the process, but I think that there is a point at which you can just go a little too far. So here's the question. And whoever wrote this, this is no shade or anything like this. I appreciate the thought that was behind it. So where is it at? It was a goodie. It's a juicy one. Oh, would you recommend respectfully approaching a family at your current school who did get accepted to ask if they plan on enrolling so your kid could possibly get their space? Whoa, that's bold. I don't think you should do that. I think there's some privacy issues there. So, Nina, you want to go ahead with that? Because
I think our reactions probably are telling you right now, no, as tempting as it is. And again, it's personal, right? You're thinking of your baby and you want to make sure this works out, but you can't do that. You just can't do that. And the same for us too. You can't call us and ask if so-and-so is applying. We're not going to tell you that information, or if we accept. This is a very confidential process and we're not going to give that information to you. We had a parent actually on in the interview, and his interview saying, let me know if I can make any relocation plans for any of your current students. It almost sounded like a threat. We were like, that's weird. Don't do that. So again, I know it's your baby, but just, you gotta think about how that might land on others around you.
I totally agree. And again, everything's in divine order, y'all. I mean, we our kids will thrive and be successful as long as we go with them as parents, wherever they go, wherever they land, we're a part of that. So I just want to say that, and I understand the stress behind it. The other question is, this is a really common one, and this is a little bit of a pickle, and I would love to hear from you all, your thoughts on this. So a parent said, I got accepted at my second choice school, but we need to make a decision before we hear from our first choice school. Is it okay to accept anyway to secure the space just in case? You want to go for that, Rachel? Do you want to give some feedback?
I love it when people are transparent. Truly, I would never, if a family came to me and said, if I accepted a family and they said, thank you so much, we're actually waiting for our number one though. Would you give us some time? I always say, use your asker. I have no problem with that. We're all understanding that we're all trying to make the best choices for our families and for our children. And I would much rather someone ask me that directly than dodge me, right? Or go dark on me. Sometimes I will always say, we are in the job of admitting. We are always trying to find ways to get families here. So if this is this boy is, for me, right? Like, I'm going to find a way to give them the time that they need, right? So I'm always a proponent of not hesitating to pick up and ask. I really am not. We're not, depending on the timing, depending on how short we are, it's not always possible, but I always like to think that we're all we're all reasonable people. And if there's time to be, given to families, that we can, if we can.
Gina, would you mind if I added something? Oh,
yes, no, please. And thank you, Rachel.
I just wanted to say too, that as the schools work together, we have a common date when contracts are due, so that RIIE may release their decision on one day, GA another day, we do another day. But we can't force the hand of anyone to say, if you don't tell us by this Friday, you're going to lose your spot, right? So we all very purposefully and intentionally have a single day that serves as our contract deadline, so that families have that time to make some of those decisions and also find out what all their choices are going to be.
to add to that, sorry, it makes it a little bit more complicated because I'm sure there's a lot of you who overlap with the New York City schools. They're on a much earlier timeline, and they're the ones who actually aren't part of our consortium and might not budge. They might not give you that wiggle room, and then it does get complicated. But to Rachel's point, call our office, let us know the situation. We might be able to give you sort of a wink, wink, nod, nod. You're reading well, hang in there. To the question about depositing, we don't encourage you to do that. It really kind of messes with all of us and causes a domino effect. We do know that many families will do that, especially if they have the means to do it, to hold their spot at one place and then kind of figure out and literally buy themselves time. We're not proponents of that, I would think, but yeah, just wanted to add that last bit.
Oh, no, thank you for that. So clearly we're getting into some of the chat questions, and we do have time for that. So thank you all. There's one that's really cool. So does providing supplemental information about the child, maybe work samples, videos, I'm a big proponent of, just sending things like that, achievements, does it give more insight into the decision-making process? And what kind of information do you find helpful and or not helpful? And I think I'd like each one of you to just respond to that quickly.
I love this question. This always comes up for me, especially from boys who have been waitlisted. I always say to the parents, and again, this might be a little different, particularly to me because I'm upper school, but I always say to the parents, if he wants me to know about it and he's proud of it, I want to know about it. I don't want moms to, photocopy everything that they've gotten since second grade, right? But if it's really, if he wants to share it with me, I've gotten some beautiful works of art, amazing, videos. And whether, he's a concert pianist or not, he wanted me to know that was something that was important to him. So for me, that's important. Moms and dads and grandmas, weighing in on, being the second grade, sneaker award winner in gym class is different, right? Unless they're particularly proud about it too. But those are the ones that I find useful.
I love that, Rachel. I'm going to steal that from you. I would totally agree. I always say we accept supplemental or co-curricular recommendations, just optional. But I caution a family. I say if your student is really passionate about something, I'm going on an ice hockey theme tonight, right? Hockey, it's probably not helpful to get 3 recommendations all from hockey coaches, right? We want a different lens. If they're all saying the same thing, we get it at that point, right? But to the same point, I do want to state that some of our admissions files are really thin, especially in the time of COVID, where we have limited interaction with families. Sometimes we're doing a variety of Zoom interviews or what have you. And a lot of our public school districts refuse to rate recommendations. And we really don't want to penalize the student, the family. That's not their fault. That's not fair. So I always say, hey, it doesn't hurt to ask. They may take their stamp out quite literally and say, we do not write recommendations. A number of school districts do, but it doesn't hurt to ask the individual teachers. Some will. We'll do verbal recommendations as well. So I'm always of the mindset is that more is more, and it's often very helpful to give us a more comprehensive picture, especially in this day and age where we're not getting a ton of information on some of our applicants.
I'm glad to hear that about schools that might be resistant to writing letters of recommendation or filling out the forms that share more about the student. That's a shame, but it can happen. And I'm glad to know that there's some flexibility around that, other ways we can work around that. All right, so I'm going to end with this. I want to spend just as we close out, because thank you, everyone. It is 8:30. Oh my goodness, it's 8:38 right now. But I think this is still a really important question. How does a parent find out why their child was not accepted? You alluded to this earlier, Nina, so that they can pivot for the application the next year. Anybody want to tackle that before we say good night for the evening? Because it is about, if we're going to own this process, we're going to accept all of the responses that we have and just more powerfully move in the direction of that, whatever that is.
I'm happy to start and then would love a colleague to add on to it, but I think it's going to be different at every school. And I think some schools are going to be a little bit quieter about the reasons in their decision, their process, which they have every right to be, and others will be a little bit more explicit and open. What we can't share is what a teacher recommendation says. What we can't share are really the confidential pieces that might expose something that was given. So we have to be really careful when we give feedback. So when we're not giving you all the details, it's not us being shady and not trying to be helpful. It's just we're really trying to protect that process. And in fact, on our application, the statement at the bottom, and it might be there as well for my colleagues, it says that you give up the right. You don't have the right to find out all the information in this application. By signing it, you're giving us permission to gather it and make our decision. So you might not get everything, but in those cases where we're willing to say, you know what, that essay just didn't, the writing sample, we think there could be some work in that area, keep working at it. We believe in her, or, just give it a little bit more time. That might be useful information, but just be prepared that every office is going to respond differently.
Yeah, Nina said this earlier, and I agree. Pick up the phone. I'm willing to have those conversations, and I agree that we still view any relationship through this process as a partnership, right? And so is there something that we could even help a family with that? If it's not St. Luke's, what might be another opportunity? What are some of the things to maybe work on? So we really do value the relationship that we've built along the way and want to continue that relationship. So I think there's often ways that there may be other things to work on or other suggestions too. So pick up the phone.
Mm-hmm. All right. Y'all, do we get another question? Okay, so listen, save the chat, y'all, because there are some questions here that, again, we'll address during the next couple of weeks. I just want to thank our panel number 2, especially because I know how hard you all are working right now. It is a tough time. I hope that you get the yield that you've worked so hard to put out there. Thank you for building communities. Thank you for doing the work that is necessary to make sure that our schools are more equitable and inclusive and safe for all children. And I think I got a new message right here. All right, well, that's it. That's it, y'all. Thank you very much for joining. I wish everyone the best of luck in this process. And remember, everything's in divine order. You're already perfect. Your children are perfect. It's just about finding the right space for them. And it's up to us as parents to make sure that the spaces are what we want them to be. All right, so have a great evening, everyone. Enjoy the new shows that we're going to binge on. And thank you so much. Follow us on Instagram at @4RIISE. It's in the chat. Follow Articulating at ARTIC period ULATING, which is the podcast. And, thank you, everybody. It's great being in community with you. Thank you, Sam.
Thanks, Gina. Thanks, Sam. Thank you, everyone.
All right. Good night, everyone.
Night.
Good night.